Okay, and welcome to episode 3 of the Icons of Fright podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Robert Galuzzo. I'm sitting here with the co-creator of Icons of Fright, Mike Cucinato.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back.
Hello. I'm also with Jason Alvino.
How you doing? Good morning.
Good morning. And last but certainly not least is Mr. Adam Barnick.
Good morning, folks.
Hello, hello, hello. And we are the co-authors, technically, of Icons of Fright 100 Interviews with Legendary Horror Filmmakers. This is our new book from Harker Press, which collects 100 of our interviews, 101 technically, according to Jay. And what we're doing with this podcast, we created and launched the Icons of Fright website back in 2004, and we are going chronologically through the book and kind of giving context and talking about kind of some of the fun behind the scenes stories of how a lot of this stuff happened. And I'm very excited for this episode because even though we launched in 2004, I feel like 2006 was a big year for us in a lot of ways. Mike and I had started this website humbly as genre fans and as an excuse to talk to people from these films that we grew up loving. And I feel like 2006 was kind of the barrier where we were started to be considered as, journalists or reporters or whatever critics, if you will.
I've never felt like a reporter or a critic.
Well, yeah,
we became legit. That's what it is.
Became legitimate. I couldn't think of the right term, but yes,
Emails were returned.
Emails were returned. We were being invited to things, which is a rarity. But this is where it all started, and I'll start with the first two interviews, and we could just kind of zip through them quickly. But what's been fun for me about the book is rereading some of these interviews and seeing the date and time and hearing how that person is talking about themselves in that moment. We kick off 2006 with Oz Perkins, and what's great about that is I believe this is the first interview that he'd really done, at least extensive interview he'd done with a horror website. Because I remember, I think I was already in touch with him through Psycho Legacy stuff, but I believe I just asked him on maybe MySpace or whatever was going on at that moment. He was an actor at this point. He'd been in Legally Blonde, and he was promoting Dead and Breakfast, which seems like it's kind of gotten forgotten, but that was a cool little Anchor Bay movie that came out around that period. Mm-hmm. And now, of course, he's this incredible, prolific director that's doing all these various types of genre films. And what's fun about reading his interview now is I forgot how many interesting stories he told about his dad. I mean, what was it like to grow up with Anthony Perkins as your father? Somebody who's so indelible with the horror genre. And there's one bit in here that I thought was hilarious, is how skittish Perkins was to certain horror. Like, he tells the story that he remembers his dad physically having to throw out a copy of Red Dragon after he finished reading it because he was so disturbed by it. Like, couldn't be in the house anymore, sort of deal. But yeah, even asking like, well, what are your filmmaking memories? And Oz saying, going straight to directors. He's an actor at this point, but he was referencing directors like Stanley Kubrick, and he's a little embarrassed to say Tim Burton, but you shouldn't be. We all grew up with Tim Burton. So I just thought I love that. And this is inadvertent. I think it was just because we were sincere in the way we approached the interviews. I love that they are little time capsules now that we can look at and contextualize to where this filmmaker is today. Mm-hmm. And, immediately after that is James Wan. And I just reread that. That was an interview that you did, Barnick. And
well, I think the two of us did, right? I mean,
yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right. I think we both chimed in on it. And it's before Saw 3 came out, and it's even before Dead Silence had come out. He'd finished it. And it's funny now in retrospect when you know kind of a lot of the drama, basically the sophomore curse of doing a big studio picture after having a success. Because when we ask him how Dead Silence is coming along, he replies, "No comment." And I thought that was kind of, now in retrospect, I thought that was kind of fun to read. But
Didn't have a publicist telling him not to say things like that. Yeah.
oh yeah, yeah. That's what I loved, is like, we were at that cusp where people were being maybe a little too candid with us about what they thought about stuff, because it wasn't a publicity Twitter thing. But yeah, so that's kind of what kicked off 2006. But here's a few of the big things that happened that year. Number one, and I'm gonna credit Jay for this, we were invited to a screening in New York City, a double feature early of The Hills Have Eyes, the Alex Aja remake, and the Russian film Night Watch. And I went back and reread the first look reviews that Jay wrote for the website. They're on, if you go to iconsofright.com, you'll be able to find them on my website now. But I forgot that Hills Have Eyes was the first time that Icons of Fright was quoted.
Yep.
So Jay was quoted with brutal and unflinching, which is literally 3 words out of your very long review, where you kind of talk a little bit of smack about Wes Craven right at the top.
Look, to put that into context, what was Wes Craven making at that time? Do we all forget Curse?
6?
Yes, you reference Cursed. And by the way,
Cursed.
at that moment, Jay, you were the first person to come to Icons of Fright and tell us about High Tension. So you were on top of that, and top of Alex Aja.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so yeah, I mean, I forgot about this screening until I realized that was the first time that Icons got quoted on something on the post for the box was Jay.
Wes had also just done Red Eye, which we all loved.
Yeah, Red Eye was good. Yeah.
Well, I was talking more about Cursed than what was that other movie?
Before that he did Music of the Heart. He hadn't done a movie in 5 years.
What was that one he did, or was that later?
You can't blame Cursed all on him. Come on.
No. Look, hey, I'm just, it was how I felt at the time. Look,
we already knew that it had been messed with. That was not a secret.
Oh yeah, Wes was saying in interviews, like, Miramax doesn't pay you for what you do. They pay you for what they do to you.
Look, I love Wes Craven and all, but he made Shocker, so not every hit is a home run, right?
But it's a bit of a grand slam, depending on.
Have you watched Shocker? Shocker's not bad.
Oh, we went to see Shocker with Wes at the New Beverly. It was the night he almost ran over Will Wright with a song.
Oh my God, this is a few years before he died. It was playing at the New Beverly. Me and Jay went with Will, and Wes brought the entire cast of My Soul to Take, because he had just wrapped it.
That's
they hadn't
what
seen
it
it.
Was. Yeah.
And it was midnight, which, granted, it's very hard to do midnight movies these days, even back then for us, which is going back a few years. But it was midnight, and we were so pumped for Shocker. I don't know why. We were just like, this is it. But that movie is really long at midnight. And all I can remember is all of us staring at the back of Wes's head and just thinking, like, damn you for making this movie and making us watch it.
It's not good. It's just not, I mean, like, personal tastes and only my opinion, but man, it's not good. You could
listen.
He'll forever.
I bet Mike could tighten that movie up.
It's a
blast,
is what it is. It may not be good, but it's a blast, and it's the only movie with 17 acts, which is what's great about it.
Yeah.
17 acts. The only movie where the what was it? How do we defeat the guy? His dead girlfriend comes back, and she's got this like magical amulet from like Claire's accessories. It's hysterical. I love it.
Oh man, I don't know. Look, he made Nightmare on Elm Street. He can like nothing.
He gets a pass. He redefined every decade.
Why is it 11 o'clock in the morning? We're talking smack about Wes Craven.
Let's pass this by. We should talk about The Hills Have Eyes.
We love Wes Craven.
We love Wes. Enough of this.
Of course.
Well,
how dare we?
Well, I want to point out because I forgot about this, but we have to. There's special thanks for those first look reviews to Michael J. Hind, who had run the New York Film Festival, and he has since passed away. And I just was reminded, like, he was one of the first people to invite us to these kind of things.
Right.
So, as we do this, I'm also kind of reminded of how many people were kind of kind to us and welcoming in the early days. And again, getting the opportunity to see these movies early for us as fans was just like, oh, it's cool. We get to see Hills Have Eyes. Having you get quoted, Jay, is kind of like, that was like the icing on the cake, something we thought
that was cool,
never happened for
right
us. So that was great. And then
do you remember the screening though? Do you remember what happened at the screening?
No.
Well, we had first, do you remember do you remember what they gave us?
No.
So what they gave, they all passed out everybody. They all handed out these like styrofoam hamburger trays, containers, and it said The Hills Have Eyes, and the inside of it was a bloody hairy latex ear.
Yes,
and it was like the first piece of swag I think we ever got.
That's right.
Also, I also remember for some reason the cowboy from the Village People was in the screening room too. Randy from the Village People. He was at all of those things. Did you remember how often he would show up at like
a lot of parties?
His horror. Yeah, he was everywhere at the time.
I never knew that.
That's what I loved about New York, especially that.
Jay, how could you miss him? He was still walking around in his cowboy outfit. He was always wearing a jacket with fringe and a cowboy hat.
Oh my God! I had no idea that was the same guy.
He was walking around. He was wearing a jacket with a cowboy hat. Check it out.
What the fuck was that?
What was that?
Was that some kind of? Does my AI go crazy? I guess my AI just went crazy. Sorry, or my Siri.
Chat.
Enough is enough. Anyway,
Siri got very excited.
Yeah,
Siri's really excited.
How could you not be,
Village People.
I had no idea that was the guy from the Village People.
The guy from the Village People.
But you remember. I remember that impression.
Yeah. Of course you do. Yeah. You're like, why is this guy walking around in a leather fringe jacket in New York City in the summertime? Was it the summertime? I don't remember.
Yeah. Weren't we there? Like, didn't Michael Hine invite us? Didn't we cover the Horror Fest?
Oh yeah.
I mean, it was probably a lot of first looks and short film reviews we did. I can't remember, but
I know you covered 2005, and because I even reviewed my movie again there. So.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that was funny because we didn't really. Again, Mike and I started the website with no knowledge of how this is supposed to be done. The first look reviews were kind of we were in the right place at the right time to see things early, like accidentally, and we would just write reviews about it. And somehow that gave us a little bit of legitimacy.
And we were also enough under the radar where we could write these reviews without running like affront to, running into publicists who were stopping us. Nobody knew who we were. And so they were there and then they would find out about them.
I think we'd also
talk to everybody.
We were also doing first looks for stuff that we were really freaking excited about. We weren't there just to like shit on something before it's even been released.
I think I remember, didn't we go see John Dies at the End and Coscarelli and Angus Scrimm were there from one of them?
Yeah, I mean, that's
years later.
Yeah, probably.
Much later.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Crossed my mind.
Yeah. So one of the other big things on top of that was I was invited, or Icons was invited to our first press junket, which was for The Omen, which came out on 6/6/2006. It was like they couldn't miss this date, and I've only seen the movie that one time. They showed it the night before. They had a screening, like I guess a press screening, and then the very next day was the press junket. Now, we were used to interviewing people either via email or on the phone. Or in some cases, we'd get together with people in person and tape record it. I had never been to a press junket, so I didn't know what the deal was or what to expect. And so to contextualize what you'll read here, because I think you'll like, basically it's you and maybe anywhere up to 10 journalists, usually about 10 people total, that they put at a table, and then they bring each party in, the actor, the director, whoever it is, sit them at the table and say, okay, 15 minutes. And then you have 15 minutes for all 10 of you to just kind of throw questions at them. Which again, to me, 10, 15 minutes is not enough time to really delve into a person's career. But in this instance, you're just talking about this one specific movie. You're getting the sound bites for that movie. I don't know the etiquette. I assumed we could use whatever quotes they gave. That's kind of the whole point of the whole press junket. But I remember being a little taken aback by this. And because my enthusiasm was sky high and these other people did it for a living, I dominated that conversation every time. Like, you're going to put Mia Farrow in front of me? Like, I'm going to jump right in and tell her she looks great, which I did, and mention the connection between Rosemary's Baby and The Omen and how interesting it is that she's doing both. So I remember that, like, I got overzealous and really tried to take over the conversations. The other thing is most people at press junkets, maybe they're not as big fans of these things. Maybe they didn't even see the original Omen. So they never ask anything of interest. Yeah. Like, we'll touch on it later, but like much later, I went to the one for Orphan, and that lead actress was, what was she, 12 at the time that the first Orphan came out? And the guy next to me is like, are you prepared to be hated by all of America? And I'm like, what kind of question is that for a 12-year-old girl? Like, she's surrounded by 10 adults in a room and being like chastised. Like,
well, Rob, she looked 12. She looked 12, but she was secretly 24. But real quick, Rob, going back to that Omen junket, I remember we went to the screening, right? And
with me, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And wasn't it didn't Tony, either he got us into that, or he got us invited to that, or I think it was this. I think it was there, and he was really like pleasantly surprised to see us. And it really was like we had become legit because we were like, like, what are you doing here? It's like, oh, we were invited. And he was like really happy that I think that's what it was, if I'm remembering it correctly. He was really happy that we had been recognized, as legit and gotten invited and started going to these events and stuff like that.
I believe you're correct. And I have to point out again, because I feel like there's not enough of this today in kind of the horror circles. And I don't know, maybe it's just a different era, but yes, Tony Timpone could not have been more supportive, and he didn't look at us as competition. He looked at us as peers and helped us get on those lists and connect with the studios to talk about these movies.
Right.
So that was great it was great of Tony. I remember specifically, by the way, because The Omen 2006, I'd be curious to revisit it now and see if I have any different feelings about it. I thought it was okay, but it was a shot for shot remake practically. And I'll never forget that screening. Somebody, because the director came out after at the end. Somebody got up and started having a fight with him in front of the whole audience because there's a snippet of 9/11 footage.
That's right. That's right.
Offended somebody in the audience so much that he would use that I just remember this guy got up and it's like, you're a piece of shit movie, and screaming at him and all that. And I'm like, only New York, this is hilarious.
Yeah.
But I remember that. And I'll tell you what else, John Moore, I'm not a big fan of his films. I'll put it that way. But I thought he was an incredibly nice guy. And in particular for The Omen. And remember, when I mentioned that these people come into the room for this press junket, I'm one of maybe 20 groups of 10. So they're doing this for 15 minutes in 10 rooms in a row, and hence they're kind of getting asked the same questions. But when John came into our room, I was so excited to talk about Richard Donner and the original film and all that, and what it meant to him, that when the 15 minutes were up, he was kind enough to give me his email and said, if you have any more follow-up questions for me, just reach out. And I did. So a lot of the stuff that's in the interview that doesn't have to do with The Omen, that has to do with Richard Donner and Superman and all that kind of stuff, that was actually a follow-up interview that I got to do with him just because of my enthusiasm in the room. And I remember him graciously sort of trying to engage with, and not talk down, but just engage with the guy who was triggered and really, really furious with him. Be like, it wasn't one of those like I could see another director being frustrated and wanting to kind of get back on track, and why would you not? But like, he was really like, let's speak about this. Let me understand. And I feel like that guy, he probably just stormed out. Yeah. But like, no. But yeah, but I remember the John not breaking a sweat and showing empathy and wanting to just kind of hear him out and explain and not justify why he used that footage, but just kind of put the guy at ease.
and not calm down, we've got work to do here thing. It was just much more, a little more of a. I remember that more than what the guy who screamed at him said.
Yeah. And then look, at this time, we mentioned it at the end of last episode, but we were at a point in 2006 where we were all able to travel to Burbank for the Fangoria Weekend of Horror there, because we just thought it'd be a great opportunity to talk to more people. And we talked to Adam Green. We mentioned that last time.
Right.
We also sat with Steve Niles, because at that point, 30 Days of Night was going to be made into a movie. I think, Mike, even you might have been the person who introduced me to that comic, or you definitely were the person that introduced me to Walking Dead, like asking.
Yeah.
I think you were getting these comics at Hot Topic, and you.
Right. A friend of mine, Greg, gave me a copy of Walking Dead 1 right after it came out. He was big. I'm not a comics guy, but it's like, no, you read this, you'll really like this. That really intrigued me, and then we picked them up at Hot Topic was carrying them, so I was buying the comics, and I showed that to you. I said, you've got to see this. I told him, I said, it feels like storyboards for a show. I remember telling you that. I was like, oh, and then look at this, like 20 years later, there's like 18 show series now. That was always meant to be. You could tell from the second you opened it. I don't think I introduced you to 30 Days of Night. I don't. I only remember briefly reading the graphic. It's a graphic novel, right? Right. So it's but I think we've lost your audio there.
It's graphic.
Okay. No, you're good. Your lips are moving. I didn't hear anything. No, but then we wanted to reach out, but that was right before 30 Days of Night was about to go into production, right? Because what is that? 2009 though, right? That's the movie.
I think it might be 2000. It might be 2007, but you know what it was? That was a moment where here was this guy, Steve Niles, who, by the way, was as a young man, a teenager in his 20s, he was in one of the DC punk bands called Gray Matter, coming up with like Minor Threat and like that whole scene. So he had like this whole punk rock past, which was kind of amazing. And then he became this writer of horror comics, and a lot of these so basically this was a moment in Icons where we were like, you know what? Let's go outside of film and let's try to talk to people that are doing cool stuff in the other mediums. So it was very important for me that we stop and talk to Steve at this thing, because again, the irony is all these stories he was doing, 30 Days of Night, Freaks of the Heartland, the Callum McDonald books, Criminal Macabre, were scripts that nobody wanted to make. And so he made them as comic books. And then the irony is now we're at that moment where all his comic books were getting made into movies again. So he kind of went the long way to do it. And what I remember about his interview, I mean, I still remember sitting, it was at the Burbank Marriott where they did these conventions, and there's like the two buildings connected. And I just have a distinct memory of all of us sitting at a table with Adam Green at one point, with Steve Niles, Guillermo del Toro walking by in the background and just waving like, there he is. But with Steve, he did comic books with Rob Zombie, which we also thought was interesting. He did a Bigfoot comic. But while we were interviewing him is when the announcement came out that Rob was going to be remaking Halloween, because in our interview, we tell him, and he's like, what? That's awesome. That's amazing. It's great for Rob. So again, I love the time capsules of things like that you'll find within the pages of these interviews, Mike, I wanted to talk to you really briefly because you had interviewed Lynn Shay at this point.
Yeah.
And you were a big fan before anyone else of Dead End, because that was one of the main things you talked to her about.
Right.
Is that the name of
I had just seen that. Yeah, Dead End's the
Ray Wise.
Ray Wise? Yeah.
With Ray Wise. Yeah, it's really good. It's I think it's got a little bit of a following. This is it's all set in it's in a car. It's Christmas Eve. It's been a long time since I've seen it. And it just is it's super moody, and she's great in it. Of course, Ray Wise is great in it. But what we were talking to Lynn about how we got the interview is she was about to be seen in a little movie called Snakes on a Plane.
Right.
Which I think it's,
everyone,
probably
even her, she was convinced it was going to be the biggest hit of all time.
Okay, so we have to talk about that. So this is, I don't know if anyone, people watching this may not remember. They may be too young to remember. What happened with Snakes on a Plane is people heard about this movie with Samuel L. Jackson fighting snakes on a plane. And they had to change the title of the movie, which we've all heard, to Snakes on a Plane, because it was originally titled like Flight 99 or whatever, some bullshit like that. And this is the first movie that became kind of a meme. So what's that, 2006, right?
6, yeah.
So you get all these internet jokes about it for months upon months upon months. There was songs, there were, videos, there were animated graphics. They went back and reshot the movie so that he could yell at the snakes, because everyone wanted to hear him yell at the snakes. And
it was specifically somebody had made a meme or a video clip of him saying, I got to get these mother effing snakes off this
motherfucking plane. And everyone wanted to see it. And so they had to go back and shoot that.
Yeah.
And by the time this thing comes around, you would think that this was going to be this was going to be the new Jurassic Park. It was going to open up and people were going to flood the theater.
Yeah, it's instant cult.
Nobody came.
Yeah.
And so if you remember in our interview, actually, I have to check that. I remember getting off the phone as we were concluding. The one thing I remember about Lynn, she's working as a character actress for almost like 20 years at this point. Yeah. And she, so you've seen her here and there. She had a few like media roles like Dead End, and she's got this thing that coming out this, and she was on Ed at the time. That was it Ed? What was that show with Jason Lee? That was not Ed.
My Name is Earl.
My Name is Earl. She was on that at the time.
And you talk a little bit about her relationship with the Farley brothers, because she'd always
the Farley brothers.
Oh yeah.
Right. She's you've seen her, right? She's known. But I remember getting off the phone with her, and she goes, if this thing isn't a hit, I just don't know. Like, I don't know. After all these years, if this thing doesn't turn out after all this, I don't know. And then it comes out and it flops. And I never forgot that, because just a few years later, James Wan casts her in the Insidious movies, and it is and the rest is history. Now she's got a signature role, a signature, honest to God, signature role. She's a presence in the genre more than she's ever been, an icon, as much as she was then, but even more so now. I'd love to follow up with her. But it's so that's kind of the fun of icons too, right? So we're talking to people who've been working for years and years and years. Someone like Lynn. I mean, sometimes we catch these people on the upswing. Here we're catching Lynn like kind of at this like working actor plateau, and you're just like, it's nice to talk to you. You've done a few things, and then just like it is, it's like it's Hollywood. Just a couple of years later, right through the roof.
Yeah. And I think, by the way, we got to her because of Tim Sullivan in 2001 Maniacs.
Oh, right.
My timetable is correct. Yeah. Tim was also very supportive of us and put us in touch with people like Lynn. To wrap up 2006, I just wanted to mention 2 interviews that I had done. Gary Sherman was a big one for me. Because that was
great. That was a great interview.
Well, because he's one of those filmmakers whose names you don't instantly recognize, and yet you look at the filmography and the work that he did. He did Dead and Buried. He did, it's called Deathline, but Raw Meat is how it was released in the U.S., which he always despised. And in that moment in time, he had made a semi-found footage movie called Carol McCain. Yeah, Carol McCain, The Case of 39 or something like that. 39, The Tapes of Carol McCain, which, by the way, to this day has never been released.
Whoa.
But that's what he was working on at that moment. And I done a first look review for it. But that might have been a Tony Timpone connection. I knew he was coming. He's from Chicago. I knew he was coming to New York to do this screening at the Two Boots of this film. And I got in touch with him beforehand. And he met me at the Two Boots Pizza like an hour or 2 before the screening, and we talked for that entire 2 hours. And he was just so generous with his time. And he opened up my eyes to a lot of technical stuff, because as he admitted, he was kind of a camera nerd. And so when it came to filmmaking, he always thought about cameras. And where that's most prevalent, even though the movie itself is not great, I loved Poltergeist 3 growing up. Talk about a movie that was always on HBO. I think I saw Poltergeist 3 more than the other two. It just was always on. And what amazes me about that film, again, it's a compromised film. The lead actress died before they completed it. But Gary did every effect, every visual shot, everything that happens with mirrors. He did it all practically on camera. And having him explain how some of that stuff was done, like literally having doubles walk side by side, it's not a mirror. It's a room with a window. Right. And somebody moves when they're not supposed to, sort of deal. I was just blown away by it. And that was kind of the turning point where I was like, wow, we can really get intellectual with some of these filmmakers. And it was, like, I think all of us growing up, especially Jay, because of makeup effects, we learned about the making of films through Fangoria magazine and like the tidbits. This is the first time that I felt, oh man, people might come and read our site and learn about filmmaking techniques from conversations like this with Gary Sherman. So that was amazing. I still have a first look review for that movie, the Carol McCain movie. I don't know why he never released it. It wasn't great. It wasn't bad. I felt more like an experiment. But yeah, that's one of those lost movies now. I should hit him up and find out why it's not out there in the world. And then we ended 2006. I was so excited about this. And I think, it happened via MySpace, because I referenced MySpace in the interview, was Ken Sagios from Nightmare on Elm Street 3. Now, remember, it's in 2006, the reunion craze had not come into full effect. Now, at every convention every year, there's a mini reunion of some sort. But nobody had talked to Ken. Ken was, Ken was our, he's Kincaid. He was our hero growing up. He was the one that went, badmouthed Freddy and survived, at least for one movie. So I'll never forget getting on the phone with him, hearing that recognizable voice, and reverting back to my 12-year-old self, being like, I'm talking to Kincaid from Nightmare on Elm Street 3. This is so cool. And so I don't know. I just, again, I think our timing was just good. We were very lucky that we were connecting with these people at a time when fandom was hungry for it. And, it proved we were right there before the Nightmare 3 reunions began and all that. Yeah. So now shifting to 2007, we had a big year. This is where I throw the baton to Adam Barnick, because this is when your butterfly wings fully emerged. You were already doing first look reviews for us. You were already doing stuff for Entertainment Insiders. Am I getting that right?
A couple years before Icons. Yeah.
Yeah. And you were doing interviews on your website. You had adambarnick.com to host interviews. But now you were kind of coming into the fold. You were bringing films to us. And the stuff that you did in 2007, you were the first person on top of Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon. And so you're the one that did all of those interviews, all those people. The one with Nathan and Scott are in the book. Yeah. I will never forget. I got a screener of Behind the Mask from Anchor Bay, and I'm watching it, and I knew what to sort of expect based on Adam's review. But at the maybe the 30-minute mark, the second that Robert Englund shows up and they reference him to be the Ahab, when I realized he's like the Dr. Loomis, I paused, I called Mike, and I'm like, Mike, you have to come over right now. I can't finish this movie without you. You need to see how good this movie is. So that's what I remember. But how did it come on your radar? Because I don't even.
Well, it's funny you mentioned from Anchor Bay, because all of this morning I'm trying to think of who I got the screener from. I want to say there was at least one other website that was already talking about it. And it could have been Bloody Disgusting, because I know Elaine Lampkin, who wrote for them at the time, had interviewed me when my film came out. And right. So we have back and forth. Somebody I know was recommending it to me, even though there was almost nothing out on the internet about it. I don't even know if it had hit its festival run yet. So it was sort of like private screeners. So I don't remember if Elaine mailed me a disc or if Anchor Bay did, because I hadn't worked with Anchor Bay at that time. But yeah, I had the same reaction. I was like, this is the greatest thing in the world. We have to tell everyone about this. And yeah, it was just sort of that dive bombing enthusiasm. Same with Hatchet, where I was like, we have to get the word out about this to everyone.
But your approach to your interviews with Scott and Nathan. Well, let's start with Scott.
Sure.
Because you're a filmmaker, aspiring filmmaker, and wanted to learn. There was just a degree of basically the way that you approached it as a filmmaker. Like Scott, for example, you had realized that he write a paper on the history of horror, or there was something you referenced in the interview. I'm drawing a blank, that he did like a breakdown of The Shining. So knowing his intellectual approach at school for the horror genre then made sense that's how he approached it as a director. Like, let's literally break down the genre. What do you remember about talking to him? Because you read that, and with Nathan, you talk a lot about his studying acting in New York and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, it's funny because also, and I'm pretty sure with the book, we interviewed the screenwriter David Steve, and I know that David originated the movie, and then I believe Scott, he both worked on the rewrites together, but they're both pretty neck and neck in terms of who brought the intellectual breakdown to the scripts, if I remember correctly. But yeah, I mean, I always wanted to, I want to know more about the movie at hand, and the Icons approach is let's also learn more about them as people. But yeah, I on some semi-selfish level am sort of learning and absorbing tips on my own, but I also wanted anybody to learn from these interviews, because I'm sure half of our readership on Icons was aspiring effects artists, aspiring actors, aspiring filmmakers, and just really get, intellectually deep on it at the same time as being dorky.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I answered your question about Scott.
No.
I just remember spending a lot of time. I mean, every interview there, I always spent a lot of time prepping.
Yeah.
Whether it was even for my sites, it's like I think that's why I was in sync with you guys at Icons from the start, because we wanted just everything to be in depth, and the enthusiasm just comes out in the talking and the love for film and the process. But I remember going. There were long interviews. I remember interviewing Nathan for almost 2 hours, and I think by the end it was like his wife giving him the evil eye, like, "Okay, this is an interview. You've been on the phone for how long? Time to wrap up." But but it was great to be able to go, especially with Nathan, that deep and just talk. There's probably a good 30 minutes of discussion of craft before we get to it, and then you're on the set of Leslie Vernon.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's amazing stuff in there. The irony, I guess we can get to the punchline of it, is that movie wasn't really a hit. Like it came out theatrically. I remember we went to support it on Long Island, and we were kind of the only people there. Anchor Bay, unfortunately, did not. Anchor Bay was a great company, and they had a knack for finding great titles and directly marketing them to the diehard fans. The thing that I've learned all these years later, because now I work in theatrical exhibition, is the horror audience is great. It's great. They're supportive and great. But for a movie to be successful, you need to reach the general audience. That's who spends money on these things. And unfortunately, Behind the Mask is still, to this day, one of my all-time favorite movies, but it is a very niche movie. Like the references and the sort of thing is not something that would appeal to Joe Blow, who just wants to see a horror movie. But I still love reading how in depth you got into it. Great tidbit was Dave, the character of Eugene, played by Scott Wilson. David Stibbe said, he's like, well, he's supposed to be Billy from Black Christmas.
Yeah.
I can't say that, but that's who he is. And it's like, oh, that's like yet another cool little Easter egg about that.
I'm really surprised that Behind the Mask hasn't gotten more of a, especially lately, rediscovery.
It was a hit. And I remember, they were trying to get the sequel going because of the amount of discs it had sold. But I know what you mean. Like Anchor Bay loved their movies, but they did not have the the financial horsepower to
Yes.
to put
But
them
especially
where we
now-
wanted them. Yeah, it's just it's hard. You know it is. Yeah.
But especially now, I feel like it's way overdue for a rediscovery.
I would love to see another broad.
I would love to see that screen locally somewhere. I think people who haven't put eyes on that because it's sort of fallen, I guess kind of gotten obscure, would be really surprised to see a movie that that aware of itself in with slashers and anything at that time. We did have we had some meta movies coming out with just Scream was just 10 years before that, but that's just something that people do now more, and it's really intelligent. Its approach, its technical approach, where it's a documentary, and then the last act is like it's shot like a slasher film, is really unique and unusual. And I am surprised we don't hear people talk. But there are a few people online who still champion it, and I know there was a big push for that Kickstarter for the sequel that didn't quite work out, and that's sad. Maybe that's one that's.
Although I never got the last.
If we were to do if we were to program an Icons of Fright.
Absolutely.
It's getting Behind the Mask.
But would definitely start with Behind the Mask.
Where is it streaming? Because these are all the films.
That's a great question.
That's a huge DVD Blu-ray hit, but I'm wondering now, where can you easily stream it? I really wish Shudder would grab that and a film like Grace and stuff that we're huge at the time, but the streaming deluge is actually funny enough made it hard to find.
It might be on Shudder. It's on AMC Plus.
It's
not easy. I mean, we think it's easy because the disc is on our shelves. I hope there'll be, I guess, another round of acquisitions like that kind of thing, where these films from 2005 to 2010, which were easy to find in every store because you could buy them in stores then, but now. Yeah, I think that would spark the revival. It's just there'd be a whole new other generation. People of younger horror fans can find it because they actively seek stuff out. But I still think those are films that they got their due, but not entirely. And I think that they could absolutely blow up again if they were on the right street.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting thing about this period is we're having these, a lot of these films going to DVD directly or having a small theatrical distribution. But Behind the Mask isn't a movie you used to find on cable all the time. It's not like a movie people were constantly had an opportunity to be exposed. And that's a lot of those movies from here. I think we'll talk about a couple more of them going forward, but those movies like the After Dark 7 Films to Die For, not all of them were great, but there are a couple of gems in there, but they've just come and gone because they don't have a life beyond that initial DVD release. There was never a huge theatrical run. There's never a huge cable run like we had.
I guess the DVDs from that time were kind of the equivalent of us seeing movies repeated constantly on cable when we were younger.
Yeah, but you'd have to buy the DVD, Rob. You had to actually acquire it. You couldn't just. It wasn't a passive thing. You had to engage with it, which is probably why we're seeing a few of those movies. Just well, hopefully, with the book and everything, we can bring some attention to some of these lost titles from just 15, 20 years ago.
I also think this era of the genre was kind of it really was, especially looking back on it. But I remember even back then feeling like everything was in flux. There was this you couldn't quite put your finger on what was, in the 80s, everything was, slasher and, whatnot. If you were, we were horror fans in the 80s and whatnot, this was a different time. I just remember it being very in search of an identity, if you will. It wasn't very focused. And I think that's why a lot of this stuff kind of flew under the radar or was just completely ignored, whereas other things were super, super hyped up and didn't meet expectations.
Sure.
Well, everything's dictated by the studios. What are they copying to make money off of? And none of these, in the 80s, it was the slashers. So they were like, let's just make all these slashers. But in this era, none of these really hit except for Platinum Dune remakes.
Right.
So really the only thing happening on a studio level was that, right? We started this conversation with Hills Have Eyes. That's a direct result of what the studios were dictating would make money at the studios. But, to Mike, you gave a great segue when you mentioned the After Dark 7 Films to Die For, which was basically...
That's this year. I think that was started this year, right?
Well, yeah, because on one of our trips to LA, and this is documented in the book as well, you and I went and visited Dave Parker and Mike Mendez kind of at the same time. And I love those interviews because we had known Dave Parker socially at that point, but we had never sat down with him to talk about his films. He was just getting ready to do The Hills Run Red, and you of all people, I knew this from the moment I met you. You were always a huge fan of The Dead Hate the Living, always
loved it.
And you know what? I was too, because I loved Full Moon. I would rent anything Full Moon put out, and that one was just different. It had a cool cover. It had a hulking zombie kind of guy and all this stuff. And I think even, we'd known Dave Parker socially a little bit at this point, but sitting down with him and rereading the enthusiasm in this interview, I mean, there's a moment where Dave says, I think I made this movie for you, Mike C. And you're like, you did.
Does Mike have 3 copies?
Yeah. I mean, what do you remember about not just meeting Dave, but the movie? Because that was one. How did you discover it? I know you talk about it in the interview.
Oh, I rented it. I rented it from a Hollywood video store when I was living upstate. It's that cover. The cover stood out. We brought it home. And it's a blast from the second it opens, man. He got great music. He got 45 Penis Flytrap, and I think he's got 45 Grave on the soundtrack. So that I was like, this is, and it was referential. It was he's he's making a lot of references to Fulci films, obviously. The zombies looked great. Yeah. There's these great practical transformations in it, and what it didn't look like is what a lot of the Full Moon stuff was doing at the time, which was just nobody cared, and it's cheap. It's a low budget movie, but it looked like it really put a lot of love and attention into it. And then to find out he's this super young filmmaker, and it's at the time, and I watched it. I think we kept that tape and we watched it 3 or 4 times that weekend. It just kept going back and having a blast with it. And then we wanted to catch up with him because he had, I know he had then, through The Dead Hate the Living, eventually ended up co-writing, what is that? What's the big first Uwe Boll movie? What was that? House of the Dead.
House of the Dead.
Yeah. Which, I mean, look, I'm all right. Well, going back to Dead Hate the Living, I think what stood out for both of us, again, we, you and me, Mike, we found each other because we were the only people that knew Argento movies at that point. Dead Hate the Living was the only film that I remember that was referencing Italian zombies.
Zombies. Yeah, specifically.
That was the thing that you kind of remembered imagery from Fulci movies, and it was still a niche thing to get your hands on those tapes.
Right.
And if you did, they were cut to shit. But here's an American filmmaker making a Full Moon movie that references and has the eye hanging out and the worms in the hand, the stuff that you would see in not Romero, but Fulci zombies. And again, the punk rock reference.
And there's some Argento lighting throughout the movie. So he knew what he was doing,
Yeah. There's super cool stuff in it, but yeah, his interview was fun because we got to delve into all that stuff and the fact that he made this film for you. When we bring up House of the Dead and it's who knew? Uwe Boll, nobody knew who this guy was.
Well, nobody knew. He didn't know. He didn't know what was going to happen. The poor guy wrote this movie and then he gets handed to this kind of jackass. So,
well, you have a very enthusiastic photo in front of the Postal poster. Were you quoted for that one too?
I was quoted that. I saw Postal. It was it was another one of these conventions. It was screening in like a conference.
It might have been Tribeca though. No, right?
No, I saw it. We saw it a couple times. The first time I saw it was, I think it was at a Weekend of Horrors, and it was just like tucked away in the middle of nowhere. I remember being I was in the screening room with Joe Lynch. Joe Lynch came in and watched it with me, and we were just sort of blown away by how inappropriate this movie was. I probably wouldn't give it the same review, but I don't even know what my review. I think my review is just like, well, it's kind of the best thing he's ever done. It's not great,
and they use that quote.
They use that quote. The best thing. It's okay. It's the best thing. I said it was a live action South Park, and they were like,
"That's it."
Yeah, right.
A live action South Park. Wow.
Yeah.
Didn't Uwe write you for months after that? But he would put the entire body of the email.
Oh my God!
Uwe
The entire email was in the subject line. It was these. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, you did. We could reveal here. You did an email interview with Uwe Boll, which we initially included in the first draft of the book, but it's so illegible and bad. This is not.
We should put it back in because. If you're gonna any email an email with Uwe Boll that's illegible and unreadable is just very him.
Well,
what is he still doing stuff? Is he still around? He was quite a presence. He lives up here for a couple of years, and he was like he seemed to be getting off on pissing everyone off. He was
boxing critics at one point.
Yeah,
boxing critics,
and he won, right? Didn't he? Like,
of course he did. Yeah.
It's kind of funny, actually.
If you could do that, go make your movie.
What idiot nerd critic? Yeah, he's an idiot nerd critic. Why don't you go box an angry German director and see how that works out for you?
Well, getting back to Dave, one of the things I hope this book does, because it's inspired me just rereading through it, is I hope people do go back and check out Dead Hate the Living and stuff that Gary Sherman did in Behind the Mask and all that. Mike Mendez was also somebody we spoke to at that time. And actually we did a little video. You edited together a video, Mike, for the website because he had this extensive, incredible action.
Oh, he's got a huge collection. Yeah.
And we were, what was fun about Mike was not just he lived and breathed fandom. Like he was one of the few directors that we met that just lived and breathed this stuff. And I'll never forget because I love this quote where we always ask people the earliest recollections of the horror genre, and everyone tells us, Jaws or Poltergeist or whatever. He's like, Friday the 13th Part 2, that was cinema. It's like the fact that like that you understand this guy just based on that quote that's what he considered cinema when he was younger. And I still like his early films. In recent years, I think Synapse Films has done great releases of The Convent.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And his hard to see early film Killers, which we talk about quite a bit in the book.
Yep.
And Grave Dancers was one of the best of the After Dark series.
Probably the best of them. Yeah.
For people that don't remember, basically there was a guy named Courtney Solomon who was a producer and had done some stuff before and after, but there was this one moment in time, and I think they only did it for maybe 2-3 years, but basically they acquired these 7 films, and for one weekend they would be in theaters on an alternating schedule. So you'd have a chance to catch any one of these 7 films on one weekend on the big screen right before they made a DVD debut.
Yeah.
And again, Mike touched on this earlier, and it needs to be emphasized because it's one of the things that's drastically changed the business, in particular for independent horror, is that the DVD market was so huge at this moment in time.
Mm-hmm.
There was so much, like, you could make a movie for a couple $1 million or whatever it is. You can get it in theaters. If you didn't have the backing, like unfortunately Anchor Bay did not really, now I know from my current job that you can make money in the theaters, but you have to spend money to make money in theaters. And realistically, only the major studios can afford to promote their movies. But then you go to DVD, everyone goes to Best Buy or Walmart every Tuesday. We're talking hundreds of thousands of discs moving at what, $20 a piece. So it was a very lucrative business. I mean, we'll get to it later, but like when we spoke to Mick Garris about Masters of Horror, it wasn't Showtime. What greenlit it was Anchor Bay being able to do DVDs of Masters of War. That's what made that series a reality, which just shows how different things were. So After Dark had a moment to play in theaters, but really it was the DVDs market at that time that kept it going. I want to pivot back to New York because another great one of my favorite moments of 2007, which I've been feeling very nostalgic because I told Mike I recently reconnected with this person, but we had met Coralina Cataldi Tassoni, who was in Demons too, and at that moment in time, she came into our circle because Adam Girash and Jay Sanderson, who were part of that friendship group with Dave Parker and Mike Mendes and all them, they had written Mother of Tears for Dario Argento, which Coralina was in. And so she was around, but also she lived in New York at that moment in time. And we were just like, she was our Italian goddess. Like we were so enamored that somebody who was touched by Argento and in his movies lived in New York and we could go and see her. So I'll never forget getting in touch with her and her interview, which is in the book. All of us collectively got to do at Brian Norton's apartment when he was living in Manhattan, surrounded by posters. I have a great photo of all of us with Coralina that day. But that was the beginning of very, very beautiful friendship. She ended up hanging out with us a lot after that.
A lot, yeah.
Which was kind of fun. But and also I think it was what I remember, Mike? That was the first interview we attempted to also translate into Italian.
Oh, that was a disaster. What a disaster. What a nightmare. Which we would never do again. That's how dumb we were. That's how dumb we were. This is how dumb we were. So she's very well known in Italy. And so we did this interview and we thought in our dumb 20-year-old brains, we thought, well, what we should really do is have this interview translated into Italian. So I reached out to my partner's Italian professor, who very kindly took the whole interview and translated it into academic Italian, which neither one of us speaks or can read, and we very excitedly presented it to Coralina, to which she responded, "No, do not run this. Do not run this. I don't speak Italian like this, and this is peasant Italian."
Yes.
Which is still a thing between me and my partner. We always reference that all the time. Always like, oh, it's peasant Italian. Because that's so stupid. Because she, of course, she speaks Italian fluently. And you can't take somebody's words in English and then have somebody else translate it into Italian. That was a dumb move. And at first, I think we were a little offended. But then, you think about it and you go, yeah, right. It's like, that's not how she speaks. She may use a different turn of phrase in Italy, in Italian. We tried.
I thought we were going to break into the Italian market. It's huge in Italy.
The thing that struck me the most from her interview was how different the genre is received outside of the United States. Her idea of just the way she carried herself and spoke about her art and about the genre, it was like, not the way we would talk about it here. It really is perceived as a legitimate art there. And,
I remember Mike, I think, asking, how's Argento looked at? And I think he's like David Bowie meets Spielberg. He's a rock star. His movies getting released in Italy is a big deal. Everyone wants to see them. Right. And I even remember Barnick, again, always going the intellectual route. You specifically were tapping into her paintings. Because she did music, she did painting, she did acting. She was an all around very artistic creative.
Yeah. I think that was also, it wasn't even like I got to out intellectualize the competition, but also and this is one thing we really did with Icons is, yes, we're going to touch on what this person's known for the most, but what's an angle on the thing that they are most known for that they haven't been asked, or what's an aspect of their craft that they haven't been asked. So I really sort of deep dove into her paintings. She's an excellent painter. She's an excellent musician. It's a really cool. So I think that was that was the only thing I think I contributed to the interview, because I was, it's like, you guys will come up with the best opera questions, and I'll see about this medium. Yeah.
Well, and what's interesting is that, her response was that for her, it's all separate, which I find fascinating, because myself as a creative, if I can call myself that, all of my creative outlets are related. To me, if I draw something, it's just as equal as my music and what we do here at Icon. Right. It's like they all feed each other for me. But anyways, Mike, really quickly, I wanted to ask you, this is also the year, which I thought was a big deal, that you got to talk to Rob Zombie on the phone for Halloween. Sort of. I have the audio. I found the tape and listened to it. Again,
sort of.
This goes back to the press junket idea of things. We got very lucky. You were put on the phone with Rob Zombie for an hour with one other journalist, and I listened to the tape. It was his, I forget the name of the site, no disrespect to him, I'm sure, but it was like Quarterback Jack or something like that. I'm like, what is this? Like a football?
No, he was a radio guy.
He was a radio guy.
He was a radio guy.
So you and this radio guy are on the phone for an hour with Rob Zombie. And here's the thing I'll say about Rob. I have mixed feelings on all the movies. Now, at different points in my life, I actually revisit some of his movies and like it way more than I remember. But I love him as a person. I love his enthusiasm for the genre. I love the way he talks about movies. And so even now, some nearly 20, 17 years later, I went back and listened in prep for this book, the audio tape of you talking to Rob Zombie for Halloween. And it's great. It's a great listen. We should try to release some snippits of it somehow. But do you remember anything about that? Like, were you nervous?
Rob is so down to earth when you talk to him. Rob doesn't he doesn't put on airs. He's not, he's a rock star, but he's not a rock star when you talk to him about movies. He's not. He's and his knowledge is extensive. And he's a really easy conversation. That just the only thing I with that interview was that first time that I had to go on like it was a press junket kind of thing. So I'm on with this radio guy, and I'm not a radio guy. So it was a little intimidating talking to Rob, and then also you've got this other guy. I forgot his name. Not that he was unpleasant or anything. I just didn't know what was going on there. It was unusual for me.
You still dominated the conversation. Like he only chimes in like twice. And
he didn't want to. Well, he didn't like. Who else? It's the same thing. We were there to do what we did really well, and I think we were on the phone a lot longer than I think we were initially intended. I think it was supposed to be like a 15-minute interview, one of those quick clips, and we were on for at least an hour, right? That's an hour long.
Probably. It's a long interview. And again, it's just one of those lucky happy accidents, because if you remember at this time, well, first of all, this is a big name and it permeates beyond horror because there's so many people in the music world that love him. Two, at this point, anything Halloween related that we posted on the website, old or otherwise, was very popular. Halloween is the Star Wars of the horror genre. Its fans are rabid. They're very opinionated. And man, did people have opinions about Rob Zombie doing that movie. So I remember this bringing a lot of attention to the site. It was one of those big things. And
of course it would.
Kudos to you. I think it's one of the best interviews you've ever done.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And as we'll wrap up with a pleasant interview and relationship that stemmed from this year, which is we did a pretty lengthy interview with Paul Ehlers, who played Madman Marz in the movie Madman. Now, the short version of this, again, this is one of those dumb, totally by fate things.
Totally, yeah.
I don't know where we were going. You and I were going. We had heard. You and I were driving maybe to a movie theater. We were going somewhere out on the island. And what I remember is you and I are in the car. As you remember, I was not a very patient driver back then. I chilled out a lot. We got very, very lost. I don't know what our destination was or what our goal was. All I know is we got lost. And at one point, we're riding around and we're in, I think, Northport. And you were like, dude, let's just stop to eat. And so we pull over and go to a burger joint. And as we're sitting there, again, random town, random thing, just we're lost and we go. While we're sitting there having burgers, you're like, you know what? I think Madman Marz lives in Northport. We're literally in the town where Madman Marz lives. And he's like, I have his number, but I'm too scared to call it. And we're just sitting there, and somehow this conversation morphs into, dude, wouldn't it be cool to have burgers with Madman Marz? And
holy cow, I completely forgot that.
This sounds like its own short film.
This is the most random, like we never made it to our destination. After that, I was just like,
no, I didn't remember where we were going.
We're going home. We're going home. We went home the next day. You're like, dude, I called Madman Marz. I'm like, you did? How was he? He's like, he's great. And so then I got on the phone with him, and I can't remember the timetable. I just know very quickly, not only did we first have burgers with Matt, like that was the goal. I was like, we're going to meet him to have burgers, and then we're going to go to his house and interview him about this movie, Madman. And Mike and Jay came. It was all of us. And so we went and did it, and we filmed the whole thing, which by the way, I have it all. I was just reevaluating the footage. We have never released this footage, but we have the full Icons interview.
Wow.
All others for Icons we've shot. And Mike, you don't even remember this, but we even shot multiple introductions. So you're introing the interview. He comes growling in the background and goes to like,
holy cow.
Oh,
and
wow.
I'd love to see that.
And like Shakespeare, he's like, hey, well, how you doing? And also there's video of him after showing us, because it was an incredible artist. He designed the original Madman, the teaser poster, and he designed these fantasy knives and did all this. Right. He showed us all his artwork, his fantasy knives, and all this stuff. It was a great interview. It was a great Paul became a really good friend of ours. He had such a great voice that I used him at the beginning of the Psycho Legacy to do the narration, just because I'm like, I want to hear Paul talk about this movie. But that was a very beautiful experience, and that's what I remember. It all
also
started
speaking of Jaws. He has a piece of the Orca.
That's right.
That's right. Yep.
He showed us that he had a piece of the Orca.
Yep.
That's his retirement fund.
Which might be soon if he wants to sell that thing.
Yeah.
But I also remember the funniest thing is when I posted the photo of us having burgers with Madman Marz. And I captioned it, Burgers of Madman Marz. The first comment was Dave Parker saying, Burgers of Madman Marz, what's next? Coffee with Humongous? And I just got like, maybe, I don't know. What is Humongous these days? Does anyone remember Humongous?
Oh, I remember. I've never seen Humongous, but I remember Humongous.
Well, I've seen Humongous, and I still haven't seen it because the movie was shot with no lights.
Yeah.
So it's a dark movie.
No, there's a restoration and it's fantastic. You have to see. Go back.
You finally see Humongous.
You can see things. You can see Humongous.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Do you remember the scary Humongous commercial? Does anyone remember that one?
Dude, I wrote about that in my Vault pick. Okay. That's the only thing I remember about it.
Yeah, you're probably. I didn't even see this movie, but this commercial.
This teaser is great.
Me.
Well, I think there was a moment where, Rob, you've spoken about how you and I have played in bands before, and there was a moment where we realized one of the members of one of the bands we were playing with was Paul's son, Jonathan.
Yeah.
And it was like this holy shit moment. You're Madman Marz's son. Oh my God. And it was like this instant kinship, and things just like went from there.
Yeah, I mean, his son Jonathan was born during the shoot of Madman. He's told the story many times.
It was the Amazing Stories episode.
Mummy Daddy.
Mummy Daddy.
My favorite Amazing Stories.
They literally took that story and
because Paul went to the hospital while his wife was in labor, still in the Madman suit. So when he went in the hospital, like, oh my God. to this guy covered in blood and, whatever. And Jonathan has become he's a great filmmaker in his own right. He's become a good friend of ours. When Jay and I moved to LA around the same time back in 2009, Jonathan was one of our first friends out here. But yeah, I mean, that was again, and there's this beautiful photo. It's in the book. It's in the book in the Paul Ehlers. We have a montage of photos in the back, but this one was specifically put with the Paul Ehlers interview, which I find to be one of the warmest photos of just him with his arms around all of us. That captures that day. And I'm kind of bummed that I'd reached out to a friend at Vinegar Syndrome because they had put out Mad Men on Blu-ray, and they just recently in the last year or two done a 4K version of it with some additional special features. It wasn't until after the 4K that I discovered all this footage, which I think if we edit it together and even tighten it up, it's probably a 30-45 minute of this moment in time. But the 4K had already come out. So we stay tuned. We are going to figure out something to do with this footage because it's beautiful and it really is a moment in time, and it ties into icons in our relationship with Paul. And I definitely would like to make this
interview has got to be like absolutely, like, for me personally, like top 3 of like the reason why we were doing icons. You know what I mean? Like the personal connection just for me of being completely terrified of this movie from the commercials. I used to take like white paper plates, and like, because I was scared of the TV commercial, I used to draw what I thought the movie was about, and this guy being so burned into my subconscious, and then years later, finally meeting him and becoming friends with him. And total crazy, full circle moment. When Madman was first released, it got a decent release. Rob, you would know this, being doing what you do, but it played like theaters, but not like the biggest of the big theaters, the 42nd Street theaters. Right up the block from me, the Franklin Square Twin. It was one of those like, off the beaten path, not the multiplex, but we'll stick it in their theaters. It played in there, and years later is when we screened Itsy Bitsy, my first produced screenplay credit, and Paul was the guest of honor, my guest of honor, and it was just crazy. This crazy full circle moment, going from this kid being scared of this movie, all the way to being inspired by the movie, all the way to being friends with the guy that scared him, right to, like, holy cow, like, a movie with my name on it is playing in my theater, and there's the guy who is indirectly responsible for my path in life, like, just such a great, keystone moment of Icons of Fright for me, this interview.
Sure. And Paul became he's so kind. He's such a supporter, cheerleader for us. You just reminded me that, the one time I got to play my most recent documentary, Analog Love, in Long Island, I went with Paul and his wife, Eddie. Like, he's the one that I drove with to the screening. He's just such a kind person. The one thing I want to point out about the interview, and one of the fun things about doing this podcast, which I hope if you're still reading the book right now, you'll take with you, is hearing our voices now in TNT. Because one of my favorite things about the Paul Ehlers one is the girl that hides in the refrigerator.
I couldn't.
And now that I watch the video, it's hilarious because you're like, okay, you're Madman Marz. This girl went in the refrigerator. Are you just like, I can't believe she went in the refrigerator. I need a moment. Let me go outside and think. Do you tell the other madman, like, you'll never believe what just happened?
It was such a choice, Joe Giannone and Paul Ehlers' choice. It had to be. It just had to be. And
he throws all the food out the fridge. So he sees it on the he sees it on the floor, and he's like, I know where she is.
I mean, that's
in there somewhere.
In my mind, like one of the best. That's like one of the best slasher kills ever. It's got to be. It's got to be. It's so absolutely bananas. And you know, the strange thing is, like, I'm sure, you know, Joe and Paul, and I forget the actress's name. I forget her name. The one that wasn't she in, like, what was she in, Day of the Dead? Or
yeah, Galen Ross.
Galen Ross. Yeah, right.
Who
Alexis
Dubin.
Yeah. Whatever. I'm sure in the moment of filming that, in the moment, it all made complete sense, you know? Because it's panic. It's like pure panic. But watching it was just like, I can't believe I'm seeing, you know? Great, funny, and to have that conversation with him was just fantastic.
Yeah, you will never see that scene the same, which is basically he's right on the tail of this girl in the same room. She throws a bunch of food out of a refrigerator, hides in the refrigerator, and he just like leaves for a little bit. And it's this long drawn out thing where the second she comes out, boom. Amazing stuff. But we'll wrap up the 2007 portion here. The only thing I want to mention is that we close with a Jeffrey Combs interview, which was fun. I think he was promoting Return to House on Haunted Hill, and the standout is in the middle of my phone call, he got a call from his dentist, which I thought was funny. That's how casual Icons of Fright got at one point. But when we return next episode, we'll be delving into 2008. 2008 was a great year. This is when Mike and I snuck into a test screening of a little movie called The Signal. So that opened
still
up.
a little movie. Mm-hmm. Not enough people have seen it. It's still a little movie.
It's a great movie.
That's another movie, like Behind the Mask.
It's got a pedigree, and we'll talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've got this is the year that we do a lot of reunions. Fright Night, Psycho. It was a peak year, and most importantly, probably the best. And the one interview that is 100% completely untouched in this book is with Larry Fessenden. It's 13 to 15 pages of drunken talking, and we will discuss that next episode of Icons of Fright. Thank you so much for joining us. The book, Icons of Fright, 100 Interviews of Legendary Horror Filmmakers, is now available. Buy it on Amazon or wherever you buy books. Thank you very much.
See you next time.
Yeah.
Is your home library feeling a little dull? Spice it up with some scary good books from Harker Press. We've got books on your favorite franchises and filmmakers loaded with new interviews and never-before-seen photos, many of which are also available on Audible. Learn more at harkerpress.com.